Certification and the bigger picture around BEE. So here at Create Infinity, we work with a lot of different clients from different sectors and different backgrounds. And our aim is to try and see how we can assist in getting BEE understood and how to make it work for everyone. The first thing is that obviously through South Africa's history, we've had a lot of apartheid and wrongs in the past, and BEE legislation was really brought in to get South Africans to get power of and control over the aspects of economy as well. BEE is not forced upon us, so there's legislation in place, but it's not a mandatory legislation that would force you, almost like taxation, to take part. If you want to do business with government, you get more points on your tenders if you do have BEE scorecards or a BEE certificate in place. But mostly it's self-regulated, and it gives us the opportunity to elect whether or not to take part in BEE. Our competitors and our clients actually get us to take part in this and to actually start complying with BEE, as it affects their BEE scorecard in the end. There's three aspects to it. So firstly, we've got the BEE legislation that is called the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act. That is the core legislation that drives BEE in South Africa and gives power to a few institutions, like for instance the BEE Commissioner, and then obviously run through the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. But then underneath that, or as part of it, an outflow of it, is the general codes of good practice. And within that, we actually get the meat of how BEE works and how you get your points and how you get on the scorecard. So the legislation, the act, is important because it governs, but the direction and the targets almost is in the codes of good practice. And then along with the general codes, we also have sector codes. So it's very important to understand which sector you are in, because within different sectors we get different targets and different amounts of spend that we have to incur, and different ways that BEE is actually applied. So it's important to know that if you are an agricultural company and you mostly function within the agricultural sector, that you actually go and work through that specific scorecard. Likewise for property, if you're an estate agent or an architect or within the property sector, it's important that you utilize that scorecard. Utilizing the incorrect sector code would actually give you incorrect points, and that would then cause you to not be compliant in BEE, even though you have spent all the money that you have to try and get onto the scorecard. To understand here is that different companies get scored differently. So if you're an EME, meaning that you're below 10 million Rand, you only have to do an affidavit. You don't have to spend any money. You sign the affidavit saying, listen, I am a small company below 10 million Rand, and thus I can't afford almost to spend on BEE. If you're 0% black owned, you'll be a level 4. If you're more than 51% black owned, you'll be a level 2. And if you're 100% black owned, you become a level 1 for BEE purposes. So the EMEs are actually almost exempt from BEE as well, but depending on your ownership, you get a better level. Then if we grow our businesses and we become a qualifying small entity, meaning that we're now above 10 million Rand, but still below 50 million Rand, the below 51% black owned entities would fall away. So that is only, an affidavit would only be applicable for 100% black owned or 51% black owned, and they're still level 1 or level 2. But all the other ones then start applying the BEE scorecard, although it's at a discounted way. So there's a separate section within the sector codes that gives you rules of how QSEs need to apply the BEE legislation. And then if you go over 50 million Rand, the full BEE scorecard is applicable, irrespective of the fact that you might be 100% black owned or 51% and a bit black owned. Ownership gives you a points then, but you're not actually exempt from applying ownership purely because you're 100% black owned. If we start looking at the makeup of BEE and the points that are available, the slide on the screen now shows you the different points under the different elements of the scorecard. So there are 5 elements on the BEE scorecard, but under the enterprise and supply development, there's actually 3 subsections. So in total, 7 portions within the scorecard that you have to look at. Ownership gives you 25 points. Management control, which means the guys who run the business. Ownership is the people who own the business, and people who own and people who run it are not necessarily the same people. And then that would give you 19 points on management control. Skills development is training of black people, either within the business or outside of the business. The money spent that you incur on training, it would give you 20 points. And then procurement, enterprise and supply development together is 40 points. So that is to assist other companies and to grow other companies within the economy of South Africa, but also to procure and to buy, to purchase from people who are compliant on the BEE scorecard. And then lastly, socioeconomic development. It's almost an element of charity where we impact our communities, where we invest in our communities in terms of education and growing the population at large. Now, it's important to understand the impact of your BEE scorecard and what it has, what effect it has on other companies. So to explain it, I'm just going to use the non-compliant one at the bottom. It shows that anyone that is non-compliant means they didn't score 40 points, so they scored less than 40 points on their scorecard. They would get 0% recognition, which means that if someone buys from them, they would get 0 points effectively for their purchases from that company. But if you're a level 1, or let's go to level 4 first. If you're a level 4, you need to score between 80 and 90 points of the previous slide that we showed. And then every rand that you incur or someone incurs to spend with you, every rand would actually contribute a solid rand on their scorecard as well. So they get 100% recognition. Lastly, if you are level 1, every rand that someone spends with you, they would actually get R1.35 recognition, which means that they actually spend in BE terms more than what they physically spend out of the bank. And that's why some of the bigger companies are now starting to look at level 1s and 2s only in order to grow that specific spend of theirs. So in today's session, we looked at BEE fundamentals, looking at why it exists, the legislation around it, sector codes, and then the basics of the elements and what type of points or the number of points that are available. In the following session, we're going to start looking at the sectors specifically and the items or elements on the scorecard and how you actually obtain these points. So it's important that you continue with this series, and we look out to having good fun with you in the following session. You're welcome to contact us through our website, through email, or through one of our social media pages.